There's a lot on the line in a divorce. Your home, savings, retirement, maybe even kids. So when you find yourself facing divorce and the unexpected directions it can take, you really need a partner you can count on. I'm Rick Julius, a partner at Cordell & Cordell. We're committed to helping protect your personal interests and the life you've built. Don't let divorce take more than it has to. Talk to us today.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Twin Cities attorneys, a partner men can count on. CordellCordell.com.
Welcome back to KFAN, the home of your 14-2 Minnesota Vikings, who are just one game away from possibly securing a home field advantage throughout the playoffs after beating the Packers 27-25 yesterday evening. You've heard me and Zacho give our amateur opinion, so it's time to bring in an expert. And who better than Gophers football legend and Vikings fan line co-host Ron Johnson, who I just found out had a Twitter yesterday. Have you ever heard this? Zacho, I wish you would tell us this kind of stuff. At 3 Ron Johnson, if you want to follow us, if you want to follow him, I should say. Again, I really wish he would tell us this stuff, but I never knew. He's so bashful and doesn't really like to talk about himself. Ron, you and I and Chad Abbott, I guess, we're a lot more hip and in the know than a lot of these geezers around here. We speak the language of the youth, much to the dismay of Nordo at times, but we're in the know. That being said, if you had to give the Vikings game yesterday, if you had to grade it using a new age slang word, what word would you use? Was it lit? Was it mid? I mean, we got the W, so I'd assume it's not skibbity toilet water, but you never know. What slang word would you use to describe yesterday's game?
I'd have to say Sigma, I guess. I really don't know what that means, but I think that means good.
I think so too. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm going to say at one point it was lit, started to get a little mid, kind of got a little skibbity toilet water in there, a little skibbity toilet dog water, and then I'd say it finished out Sigma.
I'd say it finished out Sigma as well. Again, hopefully someone can let us know if we're saying something that we're not supposed to be saying over FCC airwaves. I have no idea what Sigma means. Maybe I'm not as young now with it and wow as I once thought I was. Ron Johnson, overall, obviously we want to talk about the macro, but to just dive into the micro of the game a little bit, Jalen Nailor, I thought besides Sam Darnold was probably maybe even the MVP of the game. I mean, he had 5 receptions for 81 yards and a touchdown yesterday. It seemed like every one of those 5 receptions was in a huge spot. And at times, I feel like we don't see Jalen Nailor as much for a week or two, and then all of a sudden he'll have a game like yesterday that just pops. But overall this season, it feels like he's turning into the playmaker that the Vikings have been telling us he is for a couple of years now. Is there a more consistent role for Nailor in this offense? Because it seems like he makes an impact more often than not when he's on the field.
I'd say 100%, and I think really in the playoffs too, because, again, when you think about the regular season, you're dealing with some teams that are not as good as others. When you get to the playoffs, you're dealing with the top 7 teams in the NFC. And so when you're dealing with the top 7 NFC teams, I haven't really gone through those numbers just yet. I'm still working on my Lions game week stuff, and then I'm going to jump into the playoffs, like literally probably by Thursday, Friday, because my Lions stuff will be done by then. But when you look at the playoff teams, there's always a correlation of teams that made the playoffs, and it's usually either really good on third down or really good on first down, meaning they're not behind the sticks on third down, or turnovers. Their defense is really good at turnovers, or their defense is really good at getting off the field. Whatever that metric is, Bill Belichick used to say it best. He would say, I'm going to take away your best weapon, and I'm going to force you to beat me with something else. Same with the Chiefs when you think about Andy Reid. And they're going to take away your best weapon, and then they're going to try to say, beat us with somebody else. And that's where you see stories like, Brandon Stokely, for instance, with the Ravens back in the day, when they won the Super Bowl in I think 2000. I think he beat Jason Sehorn, if my memory serves me correct. I was in college. I remember watching it at the time it was called the Library. I think now it's called like College Club. But I just remember that. I remember Brandon Stokely hitting the scene, and then, fast forward, I get drafted 2 years later to the Ravens, and Brandon Stokely's my teammate. But there's always moments like that in the playoffs for somebody to step up and have a game or make a play, because not to say they're forgotten, but there's other people involved. Like with the Ravens, you had Jamal Lewis at running back, you had Shannon Sharp at tight end, you had Travis Taylor at receiver, and so Brandon Stokely became kind of do we need the game plan for him? Probably not. And I think Jalen Naylor's going to fit into that category. So, yeah, I think there is a big role for him in the playoffs. I mean, you could easily see the play, and he talked about it. They had Justin Jefferson on a dig route on the backside, about 15 yards. In quarters, they were in some type of quarters coverage on that backside where that middle safety or that hash safety was trying to play robber. And who wouldn't try to jump Justin Jefferson in their right mind? He jumps Justin Jefferson. And then Sam Darnold, you can see him climb the pocket, and he saw it. The minute that safety was flat-footed, he knew, I got to go to the post. And then it was over-the-top post from the slot, which is a huge deep post play for Kevin O'Connell to even make that call, because to be able to complete a deep post from the slot, it's tough. But when you have Justin Jefferson, he's going to give you that space to do it.
Yeah, and much to a similar vein as Jalen Naylor, Cam Akers had a huge impact on yesterday's game. If you look at the box score, you might not know it, but obviously he made essentially the game-sealing catch at the end, and he had a couple of big first down runs overall in general. It just seems like depth is, especially when you look at teams like the Detroit Lions, who are, on the hiring, they're putting practice squad guys out there because they're so injured. It seems like depth might be the Vikings' secret weapon heading into this NFC playoff run.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the Lions game. We're going to see tonight versus the 49ers how they handle it. Do they rest their guys because they realize it doesn't matter, and the game that matters the most is this game versus the Lions? When you think about the NFL scheduling, I forget his name, but I think this is his last season. So for him to be able to get his last regular season game, to be flexed, to be the person who's got the team that's going to be the number one seed in the NFC, that's a huge cap off. Not to say script right, because everybody's like, oh, well, of course, that's why the offsides was called on the Packers, so the Vikings get a chance to kick a field goal to make it a more meaningful game. Either way, who cares? We're getting the cinema that we wanted, and so now you get the Lions Vikings, which is going to be a huge game. And so when you think about that, when you think about who's going to be healthy, I think that's the key for the Vikings too, is they made it through this game. We'll hear on Wednesday or Thursday why Aaron Jones didn't play the rest of the game. Maybe it's something minor. Maybe it was something like, well, we know we can get this done with Cam Akers. If you're feeling a little twinge, just stay out. We need you for the playoffs, and I hope that's the case. But yeah, I think the Vikings are a little bit deeper. And honestly, the way this offense goes, we know they need to run the ball. Nordo talked about that last night, that if Kevin O'Connell could run the ball more, he would. But this is a pass-first offense. And I think every single week you see T.J. Hawkinson get better and better, which basically, coming off of that injury, it takes a full year, if not more. And so what we're seeing is the progression of him too, which I hope, by that first playoff game, he's going to hit his full stride and be, 100. I mean, I know he's 100% confident, but we're not seeing the T.J. Hawkinson that signed for big money a year ago. We're seeing a guy coming off of a complete knee reconstruction, and trying to get back to healthy, which he's doing it. And so he looks good out there. He's another viable target. But yeah, I think being healthy is going to be the key, because the Lions team is beat up right now.
Ron, this is a situation that just really hasn't happened much, if ever, before, to have two teams of this caliber meeting in the final week of the regular season to decide who, ultimately gets a first round bye, and who the other team has to go on the road in a tough, shorter week. For your thoughts on basically two things. One, how big of a difference is the day that the Vikings have, the extra day of prep, with the Lions still having to play tonight on the West Coast, long flight back home? They're going to probably get home early Tuesday morning. How big of a difference does that make? And who's the pressure on more, the Vikings or the Lions?
I think the pressure's on the Lions. Look, nobody expected the Vikings to be here. The Vikings are the 5 seed at 14 wins. I think that, that's doing way more than expected. We always talk about DVOA and EPA, and all this stuff. If you look at expected wins for the Vikings, they've exceeded probably by, at least at least 50%. I think everybody had them at 7 to 8 wins. A lot of people had them at maybe even 10. I had them at 11 wins. So they are well above expected. I think the pressure's all on the Lions. And honestly, for Vikings fans, if you guys want a late Christmas present, I would go to NFL.com and just look up or Google playoff picture and go to the NFL website, because right now you can screenshot the Vikings are the number 1 seed in the NFC. I don't know if you ever see that again, only because the Lions haven't played yet, but the NFL has already given the Vikings at 14 wins the number 1 seed and first in the NFC North. So it's a great stocking stuffer to send your Packer fans. If you guys want to spam Carl Gerbschmidt's Twitter, it's a great way to do it. Just screenshot, the NFL.com page that has them as the number 1 seed and the Lions as the 5 seed and the Packers as the 7 seed, because we know the Commanders, by winning, they clinched themselves a playoff spot as well. And so, again, even with the Eagles and the Rams, that's going to be the key, too, because right now the Buccaneers are the 4 and the Falcons are out, but there is one more game left where the Falcons could potentially get in. And so both the Lions and the Vikings, win or lose, are waiting to see that as well. Who are they going to even play? Are they traveling to Tampa? Are they traveling to Atlanta? So, no, there's never been this much, excitement, talkers to talk about all week for, the next week, plus the playoffs. There's so much of the NFL is excited about because the playoff, and even for the AFC. I mean, the Broncos are still in the hunt at the 7. And so there's a lot there, too, where both sides of this table, other than the Chiefs kind of locking it down at 15-1, everybody else can kind of move around a little bit. And I think the Bills locked up 2, and the Ravens look like they've locked up 3. So, it's going to come down to who gets the 7 seed and who gets the AFC South. AFC West as well. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but yeah, the Vikings Lions being the flex Sunday night game, that's the best situation ever, because it has nothing to do with any other team. There's no TV watching, there's no game watching. You might look at to see who's the 4 seed, so you might watch a little bit of the Bucs and a little bit of the Falcons, but other than that, everybody's like as far as Minnesota and Detroit, nobody cares about the other game. It's about this game, and so I think this is the best case scenario as well for the Vikings. They don't have to sit in a hotel and watch and be like, oh man, if this team loses, man, we're not in, or if this team wins. Doesn't matter. It's all up to you.
And just what a unique scenario for the Lions right now, who are in San Francisco preparing for a game that is ultimately meaningless. I wonder from a mental standpoint, how do you go into tonight for them and prepare for that game, and then also, again, have that shorter week while the Vikings are already watching film and resting up and getting ready for a week of practice?
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, here's the thing, though. If you take your foot off the pedal, you can get hurt. And I think that's the key. They don't want any injuries. They don't want any lackadaisical injuries. Because we know the 49ers are playing because they want to see what Ricky Pearsall can do, the receiver that, got shot. So he hasn't played much as a rookie, but was really highly touted, really athletic out of Florida. So I know they're going to be playing him. They want to see, and Brock Purdy, what do they really have? Because he was lightning in the bottle. And now, can it be replicated over and over? And is it worth whatever we think, he wants? Because, he hasn't got paid yet. So there's a lot for the 49ers to play for. Also, George Kittle, a lot of these guys have escalators and bonuses they want to hit. So these guys aren't showing up to this game versus the Lions to say, we're just going to lay down. Also, for the Lions, though, they remember what the 49ers did to them last year. The Lions were maybe a couple plays from the Super Bowl and a couple dumb Dan Campbell going for it versus kicking the field goal from being in the Super Bowl last year versus the Chiefs. So I think that's the other side of this, too, for the Lions is hey, look, we still want to beat the 49ers, and the 49ers could spoil the Lions, or not spoil, make them feel down on themselves heading into playing the Vikings. Because when doubt creeps in, that's all that you need for your team to question Aiden Hutchinson being out, all these guys being hurt, and can we really beat the Vikings now who look like they're hot?
Yeah, and as unlikely as it is, I believe that the Lions would still have, if they lost yesterday, if there was for some reason a tie next week, then they would not obviously have the tiebreaker and the Vikings would win. So if they won tonight and then there was, a situation where they could maybe go for the win, it's mind-blowing. I can't see Dan Campbell not going for the win, even knowing that the tie would get them the number 1 seed. But technically, they have to play for the supposed tiebreaker over the Vikings tonight, in case there was a literal tie, which would be possibly the funniest ending to a season ever.
Judd in Chicago texted us like a couple hours ago about that scenario, and just the hilarious thought of the Vikings kneeing the ball in overtime to get the tie, to get the first round bye, but obviously not likely. But it's funny to think about.
It's hilarious to think about, honestly.
Well, the last game did come down to 1 point, like a one score. So it could happen. We've seen stranger things in this game. And again, what better way for an NFL scheduler on this last season to go out with something like that? The last regular season game ending in a tie, which gives the Vikings a chance to have a first round bye. And then the path to the Super Bowl comes to Minneapolis.
Well, if it does come down to some late game antics, we are a little less sure in our kicker than we were at the beginning of the season. I believe Will Reichard technically missed 3 yesterday, but one of them didn't count due to the penalty. Prior to the injury, he was, nothing but money, but it seems like he's been having some struggles as of late. I know it's a sensitive topic here in the Twin Cities, but are we worried about the kicking game once again, which I hate asking?
No, I'm not. Not one bit. I mean, here's the thing, to be 100%, I would rather him miss now and be extra uber focused heading into the last game in the playoffs versus Gary Anderson. And I'm not saying Gary Anderson wasn't, it was just automatic, and I got a chance to interview a couple former guys like Chris Carter and, a couple guys about that game specifically, even Gary Zonner, the special teams coach. And it's amazing, how many guys said, oh, yeah, when Gary went out there, we were all we were about to pull out cigars and T-shirts, and we're like, yeah, he's been automatic. We got this. And he misses, and so I think, with Will Reichard kind of knowing, as young as he is, I guarantee, he's going to rest because coming off an injury, you want to rest. You don't want to, there's no reason to overdo it. But when he's out there this week practicing and kicking and heading to playoff, he's going to be uber focused on, I have an opportunity to do something that's never been done before, and that's win a Super Bowl for the Minnesota Vikings with my leg. And that's a big deal when you think about the entire game is 52 players. And then it comes down to number 53 in that situation where he has to step up and might not, maybe have kicked the ball 4 to 5 times that game just for extra points, but and a couple kickoffs. But, to be in that spot to have to make a field goal to win a game, not a catch, not a throw, not a tackle, a kick, that's a mental thing that kickers have to be mentally strong in those situations. And again, the kid played at Alabama, so I don't think there's been a bigger crowd than Alabama-Auburn or, the potential, I might die if I don't make this kick because Alabama fans are crazy. He's seen worse.
And Ron, you've been in these locker rooms, and you know those dynamics between the kickers and the rest of the team. How important is a leader like Justin Jefferson, like Sam Darnold, like some of these other these players that have really taken leadership roles this year? How important is that to a kicker, a young kicker, especially like Will Reichard?
Yeah, I think the fact that him being young and this team having a young atmosphere, it's tough when you're 20, 21, 22, and you walk into a locker room full of, 33, 34-year-olds married with kids going home, not playing video games, not just hanging out in the locker room. This is a younger team now, even though a lot of guys might be married or have girlfriends. You got to look at Van Ginkel, Cashman, Grenard. It's still a bunch of young guys and Akers and even some of the older guys being single, that changes how you interact within the locker room. And I think that's huge, and so for a guy like Justin Jefferson to not be, a 10-year vet, but be a leader, I think there's some empathy there for him to be able to talk to the kicker if anything goes wrong. Oh, sorry.
You okay? It's an emotional topic, Ron. No, I get it. We all get choked up over
here.
I got choked up a little bit about the kicker and how well they treat him. But no, and then again, a guy like Sam Darnold being new to the team, I don't think he has a hey, this is our culture. He's coming in too, hey, man, let's learn this together. If I miss the throw a pick, man, I need you to come back and do this. And Tom Brady brought this up that, when you look at the number of sacks Sam Darnold has taken this season, and I tweeted out all the guys that are up for MVP, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Sam Darnold is beating each of those guys in at least one statistical category.
Wow.
But he's leading all of them in sacks taken. And I think that's key. Like, he is getting hit more than any of these guys, and he's still delivering key balls, and he's not throwing as many picks as, Caleb Williams and so on and so forth. So, or not, sorry, not Caleb Williams, but I forgot the guy's name. I had the list on there, but I tweeted it. But, he's not getting hit as much as these guys. Or, sorry, he's getting hit more than these guys, but he's not letting the ball go. He's not fumbling the ball on hits, too. And that's the other key. Like, a lot of those hits, people, I know everybody's screaming, don't fumble the ball. It feels like this might be a strip sack fumble, and it's not. That's been another part of this, too. So I think, Sam Darnold just going through the motions with Will Riker. They're learning this culture together. I think that's been key, too.
I'm glad you brought up the sacks because I want to ask you about the O-line play. I want to ask you about the Lions matchup next week. And I got some just general NFL questions. What the hell are the Giants doing winning football games at this point in the season? Saquon Barkley possibly breaking Eric Dickerson's single-season rush record. I want to ask you about all of that, Ron. You got any time for one more segment?
Yeah, I got one more.
All right, sweet. Ron Johnson will join us once again after the break. It is Max Fuller and Zach Halverson filling in for the Common Man program. A couple more segments to go, and then we're passing the baton to Bumper to Bumper. Dan Barreiro, you'll hear me again because I'll be on the ones and twos producing, but passing the baton over to Dan Barreiro in just a little bit. But until 3, it's Max and Zach, the program, right here on The Fan.
There's a lot on the line in a divorce. Your home, savings, retirement, maybe even kids. So when you find yourself facing divorce and the unexpected directions it can take, you really need a partner you can count on. I'm Rick Julius, a partner at Cordell & Cordell. We're committed to helping protect your personal interests and the life you've built. Don't let divorce take more than it has to. Talk to us today.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Twin Cities attorneys, a partner men can count on. CordellCordell.com.
Segments of 12 to 3, a.k.a. the program. Max Fuller, Zach Halverson.
What kind of generic beds did you guys...
I don't know.
How high were you when you put this together?
It actually wasn't, surprisingly, it was Brett, honestly. Because this sounds like, this is like generic chill beats YouTube, like with the little anime girl doing the studying at the desk. Like, this is generic chill beats, 100%.
This is a low-budget Netflix, like they're showing like the kids at a party, a rave.
Or have you ever seen Love is Blind when they play the low-budget music in the background? That's 100% what this is. But it fits the vibe. We're two low-budget guys just here trying to fill in for the common man. We got Ron Johnson on the phone talking all things Vikings. But to expand it to the broader shield, Ron, just for just a second, Eagles running back Saquon Barkley is on the cusp of possibly breaking the single-season rushing record. He needs just 101 yards in the final week of the season, and he will break Eric Dickerson's record. He's just the 9th player ever to eclipse 2,000 rush yards, which is just insane considering the devaluing of the running back and how so many different running backs have had such a huge impact. I mean, most of the best teams in the NFL have a killer rushing attack, but just in general, if you're Nick Sirianni, Saquon Barkley obviously has the chance to get this record that may live forever. I mean, Eric Dickerson's had this record for decades now, but you've already locked in the number 2 seed. You have nothing to play for. If you're Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Eagles, do you let him try and go get it, or do you pull a Leslie Frazier and say no record for you?
I would let him go for 300 on the Giants. I literally would. I mean, I do understand, like, I would have a serious conversation with him about, potential risk of injury. Hey, we're in the playoffs. We're the number 2 seed. Let's make sure we don't overdo it. But yeah, I would take the leash off because one, you don't need that win either. Like, you lose this game, it doesn't matter. Like, I would give him the ball. I mean, if he wants it, I would give him the ball 50 times just to be a jerk. Like, I would. But that's just me.
Especially because you're playing your rival. Like, who?
Well, you're playing your rival. You just got into an all-out brawl with the Cowboys in their tunnel. And that's what Philly's been made of. And Nick Sirianni is the ringleader. I mean, Nick Sirianni got into a fight with Zach Ertz after the Commanders game because, Zach Ertz was talking trash about how the Commanders beat them, and it was literally just a quick handshake as they're going by, but it turned into something. Big Dom's been in the fight. It's a revolving door of Eagles, like the persona that they try to have. And it starts with Nick Sirianni. Like Nick Sirianni, after he beat, I think the Colts, he told the fans and people this is for the coach they fired because that was his guy. And, he's like, that's a big FU to them. Like, this is how he operates. And so when you look at Joe Schoen, and you talk about Brandon Brown, for those that don't know, he's the assistant GM for the Giants. He's the black guy, in that, Hard Knocks video that's sitting on the couch, like, do not let Saquon Barkley go. And they did it anyway. So if I'm the owner, I'm making Brandon Brown my GM because I'm like, look, Joe, you clearly had no vision. You let Daniel Jones not go to the Vikings. He has a chance to win a Super Bowl ring. That would be the best ever. You have Saquon Barkley, who we let go. We said do not let him go within the division. Instead of that, you just let him go. Now he can sign with whoever he wants. So, of course, the Eagles are going to go get him because they run the ball. I mean, it's an embarrassment of how they've handled this situation, paying Daniel Jones as much as he did for beating the Vikings and then turning around and now he's back. So that, to me, feels like the ultimate chess move. Like, hey, Daniel Jones, we're going to let you win. We're going to let you get a bunch of money. We're going to get Saquon out of there, and then we're going to bring you into the Vikings. How's that sound? All right, I'm in. and that's like one of those movies like with Will Smith and Megan and what's her name? Margot Robbie.
Oh, yeah.
Con artist or something. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what that felt like. It felt like the Giants got conned from the start, and the entire NFL was in on it except for them. I mean, even to the text message from Belichick.
Right.
When you think about some of the other stuff that's going on within the league, like it's amazing how bad some of this stuff has been around this organization and things they've done.
Well, and to add on to that, they dropped 40-something points yesterday. They were in the driver's seat for the number one overall seed, possibly getting the franchise quarterback that they so desperately need. And Drew Lock probably has the best game of his career, and they hang 40+ on the Colts and win the game. Why? If you're the New York Giants, whoever's in charge, I get they can't just tell the guys to lose, but what the hell are they doing winning games at this point in the season? Because now they're bumped down all the way to, I think, 3rd or 4th, which I get that if New England's number 1, they're more than likely not going to draft a quarterback, so you still have a chance to get your guy, but it just doesn't make any sense at all. That whole organization, it's just bafflingly dysfunctional.
Yeah, you better hope that New England is happy with Drake May, because we've seen stranger things happen with organizations now with this whole draft thing. But whether it's Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders, and I think those are the two front runners right now for top picks. That's the question. It's like why would you make it up to the teams ahead of you to decide on who they want versus who you want? And that's the craziest thing to me when you think about the 2025 NFL draft. Nobody really knows. It's one more week. But, yeah, the Giants – the Raiders did the same thing, though. The Raiders were the driver's seat for the number 1 pick. And then all of a sudden, they screw it up. And the funniest thing is before this Giants game, Shadur Sanders had New York Giants cleats in his locker because he assumed they were going to lose the next 2.
Wow.
And then they screw it up. So even that, having the custom Deons made – that's not even a thing anymore. So, who knows? Because you got Patriots, you got Titans – and all signs point to the Titans taking a quarterback for sure. We know, unless, again, like the Vikings have a quarterback that other people might want, but unless the Titans sound like they're going to get, they would go for Cam Ward with the Browns. Are they happy? I know Deshaun Watson just re-signed, and I talked to Tom Pelissero, NFL Insider, NFL Network, about that contract, and he said he didn't save them any money. He just said it was an accounting trick that you put the last 3 years of the contract on the back end so that now when that cap hit hits, you can spread it out over 3 years because you technically had a longer contract than what you actually signed them for. So you're basically just hiding money for later to when the salary cap goes up and that hit doesn't hurt you as much. Kind of like, if you think about Kirk Cousins with all the money he got. And then you would have the Giants. And right now, mock drafts have the Giants taking Jalen Milroe. So that, because if the Browns were to take Shadur Sanders, and then the Giants would be, not say stuck, but Jalen Milroe would be the next option. So, yeah, I don't know if the Browns will take a quarterback. And I think that's the other key is if they don't, then the Giants would probably get their guy, which is Shadur Sanders.
Which is, I mean, how infamous is that picture of those cleats going to be if Shedeur turns out to be the guy that we think he's going to be? And I know a lot of people, there was speculation early on in his college career, or at least when he first started kind of popping off, that he might pull a Eli and maybe, decline to go to a certain place or not. But that's not really in play right now, right? He's like, if the Titans have the number 1 pick, it's probably not ideal compared to moving to New York, but he's going to play for whoever drafts him, right? Like, he's not going to pull any of those type of moves. Or you don't know for sure.
Here's the thing. Like, when there's one way to say it when you need the money, and there's another thing to say when you don't need the money and you're looking for a career. Like, his dad is rich, so he doesn't need the money. You know what I mean? Like, he could say, hey, I'm just going to sit and wait another year and just work out. Now, that hasn't always worked out for guys that try it that way, but we know that has happened in the past where guys have threatened to sit out and say, I'm not going to go into the draft. I'm just going to work out because the quarterbacks coming next year don't look any stronger. I mean, other than Arch Manning, I think, would be next year or the year after. So yeah. It doesn't seem like a strong group next year either. So, but again, now he's 1 year older. Now he's pushing that limit of like, okay, your second contract, how old will you be? Because he's not a 3-year right away done, 3 and done guy. He's been, at Jackson State for a couple of years, now at Colorado for a couple of years. So yeah, I don't know. I think Deion is going to have a little bit of control over it, but not too much. But people didn't, like, when Eli's dad did it, nobody cared, but all of a sudden it's Deion Sanders and people want to make a big deal about it. Hey, it's business at the end of the day, and you want your son playing for an organization that is, and honestly, I don't know if I would trust the Giants unless they told him, hey, we're going to get rid of this GM or something, or these people in the front office, because I wouldn't trust some of their moves.
Right.
Ron, just switching gears real quick, I'm watching the Music City Bowl, which unfortunately you just missed out on.
Oh, no.
But
I know you were looking forward to that.
Any bowl season memories from your days with the Gophers?
I'm watching Iowa, Missouri right now, too, as well, but I am very surprised that Iowa scored 14 points. Wow. I mean, they have put up some big numbers at points within this season, but they weren't known for that. But Kirk Ferentz getting rid of his son might have been the smartest thing he's ever done for, him being able to stick around for a couple more years, because the offense does look a little bit better. They brought in Tim Lester, who was one of my coaches with the Bears. He's a running backs coach. He's now the run game offensive coordinator for the Iowa Hawkeyes, which is why they run the ball so well. But yeah, no, my memories, man, I just saw the Gophers post that they're getting on their plane. Times have changed. Like, their Sun Country plane is painted maroon and gold. It's their plane.
They had y'all on that Spirit flight, huh?
And when you think about the way travel is, too, like when we would get there, I remember going to Miami, and the first thing we all did was we dropped our bags at the hotel. We didn't even, I think we might have put them, outside of our doors. I don't even know if everybody put it, and we ran to the beach. Like, that was the first thing we did was, let's get to this beach. We all ran to the beach. And the only reason I remember this is because I have pictures, which I actually had to, this kids wouldn't understand this. I actually had to take a picture with the camera, have no idea what it looks like, and then take it over to either like a Target or Walgreens and have them print out the pictures for me so I can see them later.
Oh, gee.
But as I look at pictures now, like that's some of the things that are coming back to my memory. Like, oh yeah, we went straight from the hotel, like plane hotel, straight to the beach because Coach said we didn't have to be back till like 8 p.m. for our first meeting. And so guys wanted to get that first experience in Miami like as soon as possible. So that's some of the stuff. I mean, the games, they were fun. We weren't playing for anything because we were in the music. We were in was it the music? No, it wasn't music city. That was the
MicronPC.com bowl.
Micron PC. Yep.
What the hell is that?
We turned Phillip Rivers into a first-round draft pick that game because we were up like 21-3 or something like that, and Phillip Rivers has killed us in the second half.
Ron, last one for you. Appreciate you for joining us today. You're the best, man. Just to bring it all full circle, Vikings, Lions, Sunday night showdown with pretty much everything on the line. What's the biggest factor heading into this week's matchup with the Lions?
I'm going to say, don't let your eyes get your stomach in trouble. A lot of people, try to bite off more than they can chew. I think for the Vikings is, don't play in the Dan Campbell's game. Don't try to get cute. Don't have a tackle eligible come in and, all that crap. Don't do it. Because we know Ben Johnson's going to be petty. He's going to watch back a couple games that the Vikings have recently played and try to find a hole in their defense or maybe something that they fell for or a trick play they fell for and try to recreate it because we know that's what he does. He's done it a couple times now. Dan Campbell, same thing, going for it on fourth down. Don't get put into that mindset of, okay, if he went for it on fourth down or he went for two, I need to go for two. Just play your game. Let the game come to you, because at the end of the day, both teams have great weapons. Amon St. Brown, Justin Jefferson. You got Jared Goff. You got Sam Darnold. You got two good defenses. But, again, I think the Vikings defense is healthier, and I think that's where the edge is going to go this time, is Brian Flores has he's going to have all of his guys back. And that's going to be the key to this. If he can slow Jared, because Jared Goff has started off games like 10 for 10, 15 for 15, 18 for 18. Like, he's been nuts because he uses motions and shifts to figure it out. It's going to come down to Brian Flores really not showing his cards and just saying, hey, let's just stay in our positions, but this is what we need to end up in. We don't want to give them any hint to what we're doing. If he pulls that off somehow, he's going to shock the world.
Ron, look forward to hearing you and Nordo break down what we all hope to be a Minnesota Vikings win on Sunday night. Thanks for joining us today, my man. You're the best.
No, I appreciate you.
Ron Johnson, at 3 Ron Johnson on Twitter. He must have just made one recently or something. I've never heard of him being on social media before. Shout out to Ron for joining us. One more segment to go on the program. Final segment of what we like to call the Frogrum, the Zach and Max Hour. Some people called it TMZ. No copyright. Please don't send any lawyers after us, Harvey Levin. So appreciate y'all for hanging out with us today. This is my last time. Today's the last day.
Oh, my God. What?
Yep, I'm retiring. That's it. I'm walking off into the sunset.
You're the greatest value in radio.
See you later, y'all. Guys, maybe it's not so sunny on that sunset after all. But Zacho, this is going to be the last time both of us pretty much are on the air for the year 2024.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I guess, you can't put it past. Abbott might let us know tomorrow morning.
There's no natural one in here.
Right. Gonna get a text at about 11:55 tomorrow. You're on at noon today, right?
Oh, no.
So,
The anxiety is real.
I know. It really is. Zacho, a little bit earlier we talked about just this time of year, you get reflective, you get wistful, you look back on the year and all that stuff. Do you have a favorite 2024 memory, or maybe a best sports moment, a best movie?
It's so
or
hard
show?
to narrow it down.
I know, and this year feels like 500 years into one, but also went by incredibly fast. 2025 still, when I was a kid, I thought we'd have teleportation devices, flying cars, and I guess I could make an AI image of Homer Simpson and Peter Griffin smoking a blunt with Snoop Dogg. That's pretty cool. It's not, but not as cool as flying cars. 2025 still sounds so very futuristic to me, but it's less than 48 hours away.
It's going to be weird. But a lot of good times. Hopefully better times here in 25, and maybe 25 will be a year that, get one of those cool banner things.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. One of those cool banner things. It was pretty cool to get a chance to host the Grum with you today, Zacho. Thanks for having me,
Max.
Man.
Great work.
It's awesome, man. It's just awesome. This whole year at the Fan has been awesome. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, supporting us, everything that we do, from the Rue Party to the shows to the watch parties that me and Zacho are doing for the Wolves in the Wild. When's your next one, Zacho?
Oh, boy. Thursday. Yeah.
Coming up Thursday. So where's that at?
Heartbreakers.
All right. Come see Zacho at Heartbreakers. Thanks for listening to us today. Shout out to Ron Johnson. Shout out to Kevin O'Connell with his press conference. And shout out to MC John B. and Michael Russo as well. This has been the Frogram. You'll hear all the Dak-Dak-a-acts and Ack-Ack-a-Dacks, tomfoolery, skullduggery. You know all the bits. It'll be back after New Year's. Happy 2025, y'all. Peace.
Listen back to any of Common Man's programs by podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.
You wake up, put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee. So you say,
"Hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?"
Brew 2 shots of espresso.
After Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you're ready for some beats.
Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music.
You head to meet some friends, but can't remember the place.
Hey, Meta, call Eva.
Ray-Ban Meta Glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, hey, Meta, to harness the power of Meta AI. Shop now at meta.com/smartglasses.